The summer air was warm and sticky as 12-year-old Jack Miller rode his bike through the woods behind his house. The small coastal town of Pine Harbor, Maine was quiet that evening. Most families were having dinner, but Jack had finished early. His parents were busy with work calls, so he had slipped out to explore. Jack liked being alone in the woods. He had a secret path that led to a small clearing where he often went to read comics or just think. As he pedaled along the familiar trail, something bright flashed in the sky above the trees. It streaked across the darkening blue like a falling star, but much closer and larger than any shooting star he had ever seen. The object crashed somewhere deeper in the woods with a distant boom. The ground shook slightly and birds flew up from the trees in alarm. "Whoa," Jack whispered. His heart beat faster as he turned his bike toward the direction of the crash. This was way more exciting than reading comics. It took him 15 minutes of careful riding through dense trees before he smelled something strange. It was like metal burning and a sweet scent he couldn't name. Through a gap in the trees ahead, a soft purple glow pulsed. Jack dropped his bike and moved forward slowly on foot. He pushed aside a branch and gasped in a small impact crater. What could only be a spaceship? It wasn't very big, maybe the size of his dad's car and shaped like a teardrop. The metal surface shimmered with colors that shifted like oil on water. Part of the ship was damaged with a jagged tear along one side. "No way," Jack breathed. He had dreamed about aliens and spaceships his whole life, but he never thought he would actually see one. As he watched, a section of the ship slid open. Jack ducked behind a tree, his heart pounding in his chest. He peeked around the trunk just in time to see someone or something climb out of the ship. To his surprise, it looked almost human. It was a girl, maybe his age, but definitely not from Earth. Her skin had a faint bluish glow, and her hair floated around her head as if underwater, despite the still evening air. It changed color slightly as it moved, from deep blue to purple. Her eyes were large and violet, with no white parts, just solid color that seemed to glow in the dimming light. The alien girl looked around, clearly scared. She was wearing what looked like a simple jumpsuit made of a material that also shifted colors slightly. She took a few steps away from the ship, then winced and grabbed her arm. Without thinking, Jack stepped out from behind the tree. "Are you okay?" The alien girl spun around, eyes wide with fear. She'd backed up against her ship and said something in a language Jack didn't understand. It sounded like singing and clicking combined. Jack raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "It's okay, I won't hurt you." The girl tilted her head, studying him. She touched a small device on her wrist and spoke into it. After a moment, the device made a soft chiming sound. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice having a strange musical quality, though the words were clear enough. "Pine Harbor, Maine," Jack answered. That's in the United States." "On Earth," he added, realizing she probably needed more information than that. "Earth," she repeated, "so far from home." She looked up at the sky, which was now showing the first evening stars. "What's your name?" Jack asked, taking a careful step closer. The girl made a complex sound that Jack knew he could never pronounce. "Maybe I can call you something easier," he suggested. "You kind of remind me of the constellation Lyra. My dad showed it to me once." "Lyra," she repeated, trying out the word. "Yes, you may call me this. I'm Jack Miller." He moved closer, noticing that she was still holding her arm. "You're hurt." Lyra nodded. "The landing was not good. My family's ship had problems. I was in the escape pod. We were separated." Her eyes filled with tears that seemed to glow slightly in the twilight. "I don't know where they are now. Does your ship work? Can you call them?" Jack asked, now standing just a few feet from her. Lyra shook her head. "Damaged. The calling device needs time to fix itself, maybe many days." Just thought for a moment. "You can't stay here. Someone else might find you." "Adults would freak out." "Freak out?" Lyra asked, confused by the phrase. Get scared. Call the government. They might take you away to study you or something," Jack explained, thinking of all the movies he had seen about aliens on Earth. Lyra's eyes widened with new fear. "No, my people cannot be known to yours yet. It is too soon." You can hide in my treehouse, Jack suggested. No one goes there but me. It's not far from here. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. I will trust you, Jack Miller. What about your ship? Jack asked, looking at the damaged craft. It will hide itself, Lyra said. She touched her wristband again and spoke a few words in her language. The ship shimmered and then seemed to fade into the background, not quite invisible but hard to see unless you knew it was there. That's so cool, Jack whispered. With the ship concealed, they made their way through the woods. Jack walked his bike with one hand and helped Lyra with the other. She was unsteady on the uneven ground, and her injury clearly hurt. The treehouse was nothing special, just some boards nailed to a big oak tree behind Jack's house, with walls and a roof his dad had helped him build 2 summers ago. But it was private and had a door that locked from the inside. Over the next few days, Jack brought Lyra food, water, and some old clothes of his that mostly fit her. He showed her books about Earth and told her about school, his friends, and human life. Lyra was a quick learner and soon spoke English better, though still with that musical quality to her voice. She told him about her people, the Stellarians who traveled among the stars in great ships. They were explorers and scientists studying other worlds but rarely making contact with other intelligent species. Why not? Jack asked one evening as they shared a package of cookies he had smuggled from the kitchen. Most species are not ready, Lyra explained. They fear what is different, or they want our technology to use as weapons. She looked sad. We have learned this many times. I'm not afraid of you, Jack said. Lyra smiled, her violet eyes brightening. No, you are different, Jack Miller. As days turned into weeks, they grew closer. Jack had never had such an interesting friend. Lyra was smart and knew things about space and science that amazed him. She could make small objects float with her mind, though she said it was just a simple trick that all Stellarian children could do. One night, as they lay on the treehouse floor looking up at the stars through a gap in the roof, Jack made a promise. When I grow up, I'll marry you, he said suddenly. And we'll find your family together. Lyra turned to look at him. Marry? This means to be together always? Yeah, Jack nodded seriously. As a team, forever. Lyra smiled. I would like this. The next morning, Lyra's wristband began to pulse with light. It's working, she said, her voice mixed with relief and sadness. My family has found my signal. They will come soon? Jack felt his heart sink. How soon? Today, when the sun is highest. They spent their last hours together talking about everything they could think of. Jack made Lyra promise to remember him, and she made him promise again. That he would find her someday. When it was time, they walked back to where her ship remained hidden. As they reached the clearing, the air above them shimmered, and a larger ship, similar to Lyra's but undamaged, appeared overhead. Lyra's ship became fully visible again. She turned to Jack, tears in her glowing eyes. She removed a crystal pendant from around her neck and placed it over Jack's head. To remember, she said, and to find me again. Jack hugged her tightly. I promise I'll find you. A beam of light came down from the larger ship, surrounding Lyra and her damaged pod. She waved as both she and the small ship began to rise toward the larger vessel. Jack watched until the ship disappeared into the clouds, the crystal pendant warm against his chest. He didn't know how, but someday he would keep his promise. 15 years passed since that summer day when Lyra left Earth. The small alien girl had grown into a young woman by Stellarian standards. Her once childish features had matured into elegant beauty. Her color-shifting hair now reached her lower back, flowing like liquid starlight around her tall, slender form. The soft glow of her skin had deepened to a rich blue-violet that shimmered when she moved. Lyra stood at the observation window of the cultural embassy ship, staring out at the distant blue planet. Earth looked so small from here at the edge of its solar system, yet it filled her thoughts constantly. Ambassador Lyra, the council is waiting, said a voice behind her. Lyra turned to face her assistant. Thank you, Navi. I'll be there shortly. After her assistant left, Lyra touched the Earth photograph she kept in a small pocket near her heart. It showed a smiling boy with messy brown hair and bright green eyes, Jack Miller, the human child, who had helped her when she was lost and afraid on his planet. The memory of his promise still warmed her heart, though her logical mind knew it had been childish fantasy. Humans live such short lives compared to Stellarians. He would be a young adult now, probably with no memory of the alien girl he once knew. Still, Lyra had convinced the Stellarian High Council to let her serve as the cultural diplomat for Earth. Each year, she brought her ship to the edge of Earth's solar system, monitoring human progress, waiting for the day they would achieve the technology needed for official first contact. Lyra straightened her formal robes and headed to the council meeting. As she walked the curved hallways of the ship, other Stellarians nodded respectfully. At 27 by Earth years, Lyra was young for such an important position, but her understanding of human culture made her valuable. "Ambassador, we have reviewed your latest report on Earth's technological progress," said Elder Marin when Lyra entered the circular meeting room. The 7 elders sat in a semicircle, their ancient faces serious beneath their long, white, gravity-defying hair. "Their advancement continues at an impressive rate," Lyra replied. "I believe they will achieve qualifying spacefold technology within the next Earth decade." "You have said this for several cycles now," noted Elder Tasso with a slight frown. "Your attachment to this species concerns some of us." Lyra kept her face calm. "I base my assessments on data, Elder. Humans are innovative and determined. What they lack in lifespan, they make up for in creativity?" "Perhaps," said Elder Marin. "But we question if your childhood experience with one human has colored your judgment." Lyra felt her cheeks warm slightly, the glow of her skin brightening with emotion. "My experience gives me insight, not bias. I understand them in ways other diplomats cannot." The meeting continued for another hour, with Lyra defending her position and the continued monitoring of Earth. In the end, the Council agreed to maintain their current approach, watching and waiting for humanity to reach the technological threshold that would allow official first contact. Back in her private quarters, Lyra sat on her meditation cushion and closed her eyes. In her mind, she returned to those days in Jack's treehouse, when the universe felt smaller and simpler. She wondered what had become of him. Had he pursued science as he'd talked about? Did he ever look up at the stars and remember her? Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. John Jack Miller stood in a large laboratory at NASA's Advanced Propulsion Research Center. At 27, he had become one of the youngest lead physicists in the agency's history. His brown hair was still messy, though now by choice rather than childhood neglect. His green eyes remained bright, though now often hidden behind protective goggles or squinting at complex equations. "Dr. Miller, the simulation is ready," called his assistant. Pete. Jack nodded and moved to the main computer terminal. "Let's run it again with the new parameters." On the large screen, a virtual model of Jack's experimental engine spun slowly. It didn't look like any conventional rocket engine. Instead, it resembled a series of interlocking rings surrounding a central chamber. "Quantum field looks stable," Pete noted, checking the readings. "But we're still seeing that strange energy pattern when we push past light speed in the simulation." Jack frowned. "It's almost like something's missing." Without thinking, his hand went to his chest, where a crystal pendant hung beneath his shirt. He had worn it every day since he was 12, though he couldn't quite remember where he had gotten it. Sometimes he had dreams about it. Dreams of purple eyes and a voice that sounded like music. The pendant was his good luck charm. He never took it off, not even during the rigorous physical exams NASA required. Somehow, he had convinced the doctors it was medically necessary for his peace of mind. "Let's try adjusting the field harmonics," Jack suggested, typing in new commands. "There's something about the wave pattern that feels familiar." His colleagues often joked about Jack's intuitive approach to physics. While he could work through the math like any scientist, his best ideas came from what he called gut feelings, insights. That seemed to come from nowhere but were often correct. What Jack didn't tell them was that sometimes these insights came from his dreams of traveling among stars and ships that bent space rather than pushing through it. Dreams of technology that felt both alien and strangely familiar. Later that evening, Jack sat alone in his apartment, a half-eaten dinner forgotten on the coffee table. He was sketching engine designs in a notebook, not the official ones from work, but variations that came from his own imagination. Designs that NASA would consider too theoretical or even impossible. His TV played quietly in the background, a news program discussing the latest developments in space exploration. The reporter mentioned plans for a new deep space communication array that might detect signals from other civilizations. Jack looked up, his attention caught. For a moment, he felt a strange sensation, like remembering something important that had slipped his mind. The crystal pendant seemed to warm against his skin. "That's it," he muttered, turning to a fresh page in his notebook. "We're thinking about this all wrong. It's not about pushing through space. It's about creating a resonance." His pen moved quickly across the paper, drawing a new configuration for his engine design. In his mind, he could almost hear a musical voice explaining the principles. Though he couldn't quite catch the words, back on her ship, Lyra suddenly sat upright from her meditation. A sensation like an electrical current had passed through her body. Something had changed. She rushed to her monitoring station and checked the readings from Earth. For a brief moment, there had been a signal, not a communication exactly, but an energy pattern that matched Stellarian technology. It had been faint and fleeting, but unmistakable. Lyra's heart raced as she traced the signal's origin. It had come from a research facility in Houston, Texas. She accessed Earth's information network, what humans called the Internet, and searched for information about the facility. Her breath caught when she saw a recent news article featuring a team of NASA scientists. In the background of the photo, partly turned away from the camera but still recognizable, was a face she had never forgotten. Jack Miller had grown up, but his eyes were the same. And around his neck, just visible above his collar, was the crystal pendant she had given him 15 years ago. Somehow, without understanding what he was doing, he was beginning to unlock its secrets. Jack stared at the lab results on his computer screen, his heart beating fast. The test they had run yesterday had produced something impossible. During the 3 seconds that the experimental engine was active, it had created a ripple in space that their instruments couldn't fully measure. "Pete, look at this energy signature again," Jack said, pointing to a pattern on the screen. His assistant leaned closer. "I've never seen anything like it. It's almost like the engine was trying to communicate with something." Jack nodded slowly. The crystal pendant beneath his shirt felt unusually warm. During the test, it had glowed briefly, though no one else had noticed. Jack had been both excited and afraid. The glow had triggered flashes of memory, a girl with violet eyes, a small ship, a promise made long ago. "Dr. Miller?" The voice of NASA Director Harris broke into his thoughts. "A word in my office, please." Jack followed the older man down the hallway. Director Harris was usually calm and serious, but today he seemed excited. "We've received a signal," Harris said once they were alone in his office. "About 6 hours after your test yesterday. It came from the edge of our solar system." Jack felt a strange tingling sensation along his spine. "What kind of signal?" "We don't know. It wasn't radio waves or any communication method we understand. But it was definitely artificial and definitely directed at Earth." Harris paused. "More specifically, it was directed at your lab." Jack sat down slowly, his legs suddenly weak. "My lab? Are you sure?" Harris nodded. "The signal contained mathematical patterns that matched the energy signature from your engine test, but much more refined." "Jack, I think someone out there noticed what you did and responded." Jack's hand went to his pendant. Suddenly, the dreams and half-memories that had haunted him for years made a new kind of sense. "I need to run another test," he said. "A stronger one." Director Harris looked concerned. "The board hasn't approved more testing yet. Your engine design is still considered theoretical at best, dangerous at worst." "Trust me," Jack said with an intensity that surprised even himself. "I know what I'm doing." After much argument, Horace agreed to one more test with increased power. The next day, Jack's team prepared the engine while government officials and NASA executives watched from behind safety glass. As they started the countdown, Jack held the crystal pendant in his hand. It had started to pulse with a soft light. Engine. Powering up, Pete announced. Quantum field stabilizing. Jack closed his eyes. In his mind, he could almost hear a musical voice guiding him. He made a quick adjustment to the controls. Field harmonics altered, he said, initiating spacefold. The engine began to hum, the interlocking rings spinning faster. The crystal in Jack's hand grew warmer, its light brighter. Energy readings off the scale. Pete shouted. The engine produced a sphere of blue-violet light that expanded outward. For a brief moment, Jack thought he saw stars through it, stars, arranged in patterns he'd never seen from Earth. Then the crystal in his hand pulsed once, brilliantly, sending a focused beam of light into the heart of the engine. The blue-violet sphere collapsed inward and the engine shut down. Alarms blared as emergency systems activated. Through the chaos, Jack stared at the engine. He knew what had happened. He had opened a door, and someone had seen it, on her ship. At the edge of the solar system, Lyra worked frantically at her control panel. The signal from Earth had been stronger this time, much stronger. She had managed to send back a response, a data packet containing basic Stellarian spatial folding. Equations. Ambassador, what are you doing? Her assistant Navi asked, looking worried. The Council hasn't authorized contact. I'm not making official contact, Lyra replied, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. I'm just helping a friend. The human scientist, the one from your childhood? Navi's expression was concerned. Lyra, you know the rules. Earth hasn't reached the technology threshold for first contact. They're closer than we thought, Lyra said. And they have help? She touched the screen showing Jack's image from the NASA website. He still wears my crystal. Navi's eyes widened. You gave a human Stellarian technology? I was a child. I gave him a simple navigation crystal as a memento. Lyra smiled slightly. I didn't expect him to use it to build a spacefold engine. The ship's alarm suddenly sounded. On the main screen, a message flashed from the Stellarian High Council. They had detected her unauthorized communication with Earth. Ambassador Lyra, report to Council immediately, came Elder Marin's stern voice over the communication system. Lyra squared her shoulders and headed to the Council chamber. She knew she had broken protocol, but she also knew this moment had been 15 years in the making. The 7 elders looked unusually serious as she entered. You have violated our most sacred law, Elder Tasso said without preamble. No contact with species below threshold. With respect, elders, Lyra replied calmly, I believe Earth has reached threshold. The human scientist has developed a functioning spacefold engine prototype. Using Stellarian technology that you provided, Elder Marin countered. That is not true achievement. He had a simple navigation crystal, nothing more, Lyra explained. The engine design is entirely his own. The crystal merely helped him focus the energy field. The elders conferred quietly among themselves. Finally, Elder Marin spoke again. We will send a science team to evaluate this human's work. If it truly represents Earth's achievement, we will reconsider their status. She fixed Lyra with a stern look. But you, Ambassador, will remain here. Lyra felt her heart sink. Please, I should be part of the team. I understand Earth culture better than anyone. Your judgment is compromised by personal attachment, Elder. Tasso said firmly. Back on Earth, Jack found himself surrounded by government officials, military personnel, and fellow scientists. News of the strange energy field and the responding signal had leaked, causing global excitement and concern. Dr. Miller, the President wants you to lead a new task force, Director Harris announced. You'll have unlimited resources to develop your engine and respond to whoever is out there. Jack nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. The brief glimpse he had gotten through the energy field had triggered more memories. A treehouse, a girl who could make things float. A childish promise. That night, alone in his apartment, Jack held the crystal pendant under a lamp. Inside it, he could now see patterns that looked like star maps. One section glowed brighter than the rest. Jack pulled out his old astronomy books. The star pattern matched the constellation Lyra. Suddenly a name came to his lips. Lyra, he whispered. As he said it, the crystal glowed brighter. Confirming what his heart already knew, Jack went to his computer and began typing frantically. If his engine could create a small space fold, a larger one could potentially send a message, a real message, not just an energy signature. He worked through the night, designing modifications. He would need more power, more precision. But he knew it would work. It had to work, because now he remembered his promise and he intended to keep it. 6 months passed in a blur of activity. Jack's life had completely changed. His small NASA lab had expanded into a massive facility with hundreds of scientists and engineers. The world's governments had united to fund what they called the First Contact Initiative, with Jack as the lead scientist. The improved engine was nearly complete. Much larger than the prototype, it filled a chamber the size of a basketball court. The crystal pendant, now understood to be alien technology, was carefully integrated into the control system. Jack stood at the main console, checking the final calculations. His memories of Lyra had returned fully now. He often dreamed of their time together in the treehouse, of her departure, and of his promise to find her again. "Engine ready for full power test," announced Pete, who now led a team of 20 engineers. Jack nodded. "Begin power-up sequence." As the engine hummed to life, the crystal at its heart glowed with increasing brightness. Jack felt a familiar warmth. In his chest, a connection to someone far away. "Spacefold initiating," called one of the scientists. "Field stability at 95%. On the massive screen above the control room, stars appeared, a view from somewhere else. As the image stabilized, a ship came into focus. It was elegant and streamlined, with a surface that shifted colors like oil on water. "My God," whispered Director Harris, "it's really them." A hush fell over the room as a signal came through the communications system. It wasn't a voice, but a data packet containing translation protocols. Within seconds, the computer had integrated. "Them, this is Stellarian Science Vessel Harmony," came a voice through the speakers. "We receive your spacefold signal. Request permission to approach Earth?" Jack leaned forward. "This is Dr. Jack Miller, Earth First Contact Initiative." "Permission granted. Welcome to our solar system." There was a pause before the reply came. "Dr. Miller, we have been monitoring your progress. A delegation will arrive within 1 Earth. They to establish formal contact." After the communication ended, the facility erupted in celebration. Humanity had made first contact with an alien civilization. In the excitement, no one noticed Jack slip away to his private office, alone. He held the crystal pendant and whispered, "Lyra, are you coming too?" The crystal pulsed once, warmly, but gave no clear answer. On the Stellarian ship, Lyra watched the exchange from her quarters. She had not been allowed to participate in the official communication, but she had monitored everything. Her status as ambassador had been suspended pending review. The science team led by Elder Tasso had taken over the Earth contact mission. "They did it," she whispered, touching the screen that showed Jack's face. He looked tired but happy. And he remembered her now. She could see it in his eyes when he asked about her. A soft chime indicated someone at her door. Lyra composed herself before saying, "Enter." Elder Marin stepped into the room. The ancient Stellarian's expression was unreadable. "The Council has reconsidered your situation," she said without preamble. "You will join the diplomatic delegation to Earth." Lyra could not hide her surprise. "What changed your minds?" "The human Dr. Miller has asked for you specifically. He claims you and he have a prior connection." Elder Marin's tone was carefully neutral. "Is this true?" "Yes," Lyra admitted. "He was the human child who helped me when my escape pod crashed on Earth 15 years ago." Elder Marin nodded slowly. "We suspected as much. The Council believes your presence may smooth the diplomatic process, given this history." Lyra bowed her head respectfully, hiding the joy that threatened to overwhelm her. "I will serve the Council's wishes." The next day, Jack stood with Earth's welcoming committee at the newly constructed landing facility outside of Houston. World leaders, scientists, and military personnel waited nervously as the Stellarian ship descended through the clouds. It was smaller than Jack had expected, about the size of a commercial airplane, but far more elegant. It landed without a sound, settling gently onto the platform. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a section of the hull shimmered and an opening appeared. A ramp extended to the ground. 5 Stellarians emerged. 4 were clearly older, with white hair that floated around their heads like clouds. They wore formal robes with complex patterns that seemed to move on their own, but it was the 5th figure that captured Jack's attention. Taller than he remembered, with longer hair that shifted colors in the sunlight, but with the same violet eyes that had haunted his dreams for 15 years. Lyra. She walked behind the elders, her expression carefully composed. But her eyes found Jack immediately in the crowd, and for a brief moment, her formal mask slipped to reveal a smile that he remembered from his childhood. The formal introductions began, with Earth's Secretary General welcoming the Stellarians. Elder Tasso responded with a prepared speech about peaceful intentions and cultural exchange. Jack barely heard any of it. His attention remained fixed on Lyra, who stood perfectly still throughout the ceremony, only occasionally glancing in his direction. Finally, the formal part ended, and the groups began to mix for more personal introductions. Jack made his way through the crowd, his heart pounding. When he reached her, he found himself speechless. Up close, she was both familiar and new. The child he had known was now a beautiful woman, her blue-violet skin glowing softly in the afternoon. "Son, hello, Jack Miller," Lyra said, her voice still carrying that musical quality he remembered. "You remembered me?" he managed to say. "I never forgot," she replied simply. They stood there, surrounded by the most important gathering in human history. Yet for them, it might as well have been just the two of them alone in a treehouse. "I kept my promise," Jack said finally. "I found you." Lyra's eyes brightened. "Actually, I found you. Your engine signal was quite loud." Jack laughed, and just like that, the years between them seemed to shrink. "Ambassador Lyra," called Elder Tasso, "please join us for the treaty discussion." Lyra nodded respectfully to the elder before turning back to Jack. "We must follow protocol now, but later. Later, Jack agreed. "We have a lot to catch up on." As the diplomatic meetings began, Jack and Lyra maintained their professional roles. The human scientist and the Stellarian ambassador, both vital to the historic negotiations between their species, but in the brief moments between meetings, their eyes would meet across the room, sharing a secret that went back 15 years to a summer in Maine when a boy had promised to marry an alien girl someday. During a reception that evening, Jack managed to speak privately with Lyra in a quiet corner of the diplomatic center. "The elders don't approve of our friendship," Lyra said softly. "They think my judgment is compromised." "Is it?" Jack asked. Lyra smiled. "Perhaps. But I believe our connection is why this is happening at all. Your engine would never have worked without my crystal, and I would never have built the engine if I hadn't met you," Jack added. Maybe this is how first contact was always meant to happen, through friendship, not just technology. Their conversation was interrupted by a signal on Lyra's communication device. She looked at it and sighed. "The elders want me to review the cultural exchange protocols before tomorrow's meeting," she explained. As she turned to leave, Jack gently caught her hand. The touch sent a small shock through both of them. "I still remember my promise," he said quietly. Lyra's violet eyes met his. "So do I, Jack Miller, so do I." 3 months after the Stellarians arrived on Earth, the diplomatic talks were progressing well. A permanent embassy had been established in Geneva, Switzerland, where representatives from both species worked to build a framework for cooperation. Jack had been appointed as the chief science liaison, working closely with the Stellarian team to share technology in a careful, measured way. He spent most days in meetings and labs, explaining human science and learning about Stellarian advancements. Lyra had been formally reinstated as Earth ambassador after the Council recognized that her connection with Jack was valuable rather than problematic. The elders had seen how humans responded to her with trust and warmth that they did not yet extend to other Stellarians on a cool spring evening. Jack and Lyra walked together in the embassy gardens. After months of public duties and formal interactions, these private moments had become precious to them both. "The cultural exchange program is ready to launch next month," Lyra said, her violet eyes reflecting the setting sun. 20 human students will visit our main ship to learn Stellarian science, and 20 of our young people will study at Earth universities. Jack smiled. "It's amazing how far we've come in just 3 months. Our species are more compatible than the elders expected," Lyra agreed, "though there are still many who worry about moving too quickly." They stopped beside a small pond where earthfish swam alongside colorful, Stellarian aquatic plants that glowed softly in the deepening twilight. "There's something I need to ask you," Jack said, suddenly serious. "Something I've been thinking about since you returned." Lyra turned to face him fully, her color-shifting hair floating gently in the breeze. "Yes? Do you remember the promise I made when we were children that someday I would marry you?" Lyra's skin glowed brighter with emotion. "I remember. It was a child's promise." "What if it wasn't just that?" Jack took her hands in his. They felt warm and slightly different from human hands, with a subtle vibration that he had come to find comforting. What if it was something more? "Jack," Lyra said softly, "our species have different customs for pair bonding. For Stellarians, marriage is primarily a practical arrangement for mutual support and possibly child-rearing. And for humans, it's about love," Jack said. "About choosing one person to share your life with. The concept of romantic love as humans. Understand, it is still new to many Stellarians," Lyra explained. "We feel deep connections, but we express them differently." Jack nodded. "I know. And I've been learning about Stellarian ways, just as you've been learning about human customs." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "This is a human tradition. When we want to ask someone to marry us, we offer a ring." He opened the box to reveal a ring unlike any on Earth. It was made from a blend of earth gold and Stellarian metal that shifted colors like Lyra's hair. In place of a diamond was a tiny crystal, similar to the pendant he had worn for 15 years. "The crystal is from my pendant," he explained. "Our scientists worked with Stellarian artisans to reshape it without losing its properties." Lyra stared at the ring, her expression a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. The elders would not approve. "There has never been a formal union between our species." "That's why it would be so important," Jack said. "Not just for us, but for both our peoples, a symbol of what's possible." Lyra was silent for a long moment. There would be practical challenges. Biological differences, cultural misunderstandings, possible political complications. "I know," Jack acknowledged. "But we've been overcoming challenges since we met in those woods 15 years ago." A smile slowly spread across Lyra's face. "You were a stubborn child. You've grown into an equally stubborn man. Is that a yes?" Jack asked hopefully. "It's a yes," Lyra replied, "but with conditions. We must honor both traditions. A human ceremony and a Stellarian bonding ritual." Jack grinned. "Agreed." When they announced their intention to unite in both human marriage and Stellarian bonding, the reaction was mixed. Some humans worried about the implications of such a union. Some Stellarians, particularly the elders, expressed concern about breaking long-standing traditions, but others on both sides saw it as a powerful symbol of cooperation between the species. After much debate, both governments gave their approval, though with careful diplomatic language about this being a unique case, rather than a new policy. The ceremony took place exactly 1 year after the Stellarians first landed on Earth. It was held in the garden of the Stellarian Embassy, with the event broadcast globally and to Stellarian ships. Throughout the solar system, Jack wore a formal suit with subtle elements of Stellarian design. Lyra wore traditional Stellarian robes adapted to incorporate white. The human color of weddings, the human ceremony came first, with vows exchanged and the ring placed on Lyra's finger. Then came the Stellarian bonding ritual, where Jack and Lyra placed their hands on a special crystal that recorded their biorhythms and synchronized them, creating a subtle but permanent connection between them. By the customs of Earth, I pronounce you husband and wife, said the human official. By the traditions of Stellaria, your life rhythms are now joined, declared Elder Man, who had ultimately supported their union. May your harmony strengthen both our peoples. At the reception afterward, Jack and Lyra greeted guests from both species. Many approached with curiosity and questions about how their relationship worked across such different biologies and cultures. We learn from each other every day, Lyra explained to a young human girl who asked what it was like to be married to someone from another planet. And we find more similarities than differences, Jack added, later, as they shared their first dance, moving to music that blended human instruments with the musical tones of Stellarian sound crystals. Lyra leaned close to Jack's ear. I have news, she whispered. Our scientists have been working with your medical team. They believe it might be possible for us to have a child. Jack missed a step in the dance, his eyes wide with surprise. Really? How? A combination of genetic science and Stellarian growth technology, Lyra explained. It would be the first of its kind true bridge between our species. Jack pulled her closer. Our child would have quite a story to tell someday. Yes, Lyra agreed. It would begin with a human boy who found an alien girl in the woods and made her a promise he kept for 15 years. 6 months later, the news was officially announced. Ambassador Lyra and Dr. Jack Miller were expecting the first human Stellarian child in history. The medical and scientific communities of both species worked together to ensure the health of both mother and baby. When their daughter was born, she had Jack's green eyes and Lyra's color-shifting hair. They named her Nova, meaning new star, as she represented a new beginning for both their worlds. As they stood together on the observation deck of the new joint Earth Stellarian space station, holding their infant daughter between them, Jack and Lyra watched ships from both their worlds coming and going freely. When I made that promise in the treehouse, Jack said, I never imagined it would lead to all this. Lyra smiled, her violet eyes reflecting the stars. Perhaps the universe knew what we did not. That sometimes the greatest journeys begin with the simplest promises. Nova reached up with tiny fingers that glowed softly like her mother's skin, grasping at the stars visible through the viewport. In her face, 2 worlds had found their future, and it had all begun with a boy's promise to an alien girl, a promise that crossed the stars and changed the destiny of 2 species forever.